Hey everyone, I'm Connor, an English teacher from Langmaster learning system. In the next 3 videos, we will find out the secrets to improve your listening skill. But first, we will learn about the wrong way to improve your English listening skills. How do you improve your English listening skills? If you ask this question to your English teachers, they will all tell you the same thing. They will tell you to go watch movies. They will say that watching movies is a great way to improve your listening. But there's a problem. A lot of English learners watch movies with subtitles. Some people use English subtitles. Other people use subtitles in their native languages. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of subtitles you use. Watching movies with subtitles is a really bad way to improve your listening. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you why it's such a bad idea. But first, let me share with you my student story. She was in high school. She wanted to improve her English listening skills. So what did she do? Well, she started to watch movies with English subtitles. She thought that was the best way to improve her listening. She was really optimistic. She thought that in 2 or 3 years, she would be able to understand native speakers. Unfortunately, it didn't work. After 4 years of doing that, she could still not understand native speakers. She still needed subtitles when watching a movie. She was really disappointed. She watched a lot of movies, but she could still not understand native speakers. As you can see, it's a wrong way to improve your English listening skills. So what's the reason? Let's talk about that right now. Firstly, there's one thing about listening that you need to know. Listening and hearing are not the same. If you want to improve your listening, make sure that when you practice listening, you're really listening and not just hearing. So, what's the difference between listening and hearing? Well, the difference is whether or not you're paying attention. If you are paying attention, then you're listening. If you're not paying attention, then that's just hearing. So let me give you an example. If you turn on the radio and pay attention to the sound from the radio, then that is listening. But if you turn on the radio and then do something else like reading a book, then that's just hearing. You can hear the radio, but you're not paying attention to it. You are not listening. And again, if you want to improve your listening, make sure that you're really listening and not just hearing. You need to make sure that you're paying attention. Now, let's talk about watching movies with subtitles. What's wrong with it? Why doesn't it work? As you might have guessed, it doesn't work because you're not listening. You are just hearing. So let me explain. When you watch a movie, your brain is trying to understand the movie. But there isn't just one way to do that. There are 2 ways or 2 options. The first option is to focus on reading the subtitles. The second option is to focus on listening to the sound. Now, I have a question for you. Which option do you think your brain will choose? Reading or listening? Well, the answer is pretty obvious. Your brain is obviously going to focus on reading the subtitles. Why? Because it's much easier. The text on the screen is clear, so it's very easy for your brain to process. The sounds of people talking, on the other hand, are not so clear. So it's much more difficult for your brain to figure out what people are saying. As a result, your brain will pay attention to the subtitles and not the sounds. So when you watch a movie with subtitles, you're not really improving your listening. You're actually improving your reading. That's why it doesn't work. So, the best way to improve your listening is to just listen. Don't read and listen at the same time. If you watch a movie in English, remove the subtitles so that your brain will have to focus on the listening. If you do that, your listening will improve much faster. That said, there is still a problem. If you remove the subtitles, then, well, you won't understand the movie. And if you don't understand the movie, then, well, it's going to be boring. So what should you do? Here's our suggestion. Don't try to improve your listening by watching movies. Just watch movies for fun. There is a better and faster way to improve your listening. And that's the subject of the next video. In the next video, I'll share with you the method we use to help our students improve their English listening skills. So, I'll see you again in the next video. If you really want to change your English speaking and listening skills, make a decision and join Langmaster Learning System. We will help you speak English easily, fluently and automatically. I'm Connor from Langmaster Learning System. Goodbye. See you next time. Hello everyone, I'm Connor, an English teacher of Langmaster Learning System. This is the second video that will show you how to practice English listening skills without spending extra time. What's the best way to improve your listening? In this video, I'm going to share with you the technique I teach my students to help them improve their listening. This technique works, and I wish you had known this technique a lot sooner, because it's easy to do and very effective. So, let's get started. Firstly, let's talk about why most people fail to improve their listening. Improving your listening skills takes time. It's a long-term process. But most people forget that, or they just don't know. So, when they practice listening, they use methods that are inconvenient, something that is not easy to do. So, it's impossible for them to continue doing it for a long time. As a result, most people quit before they get any results. But how do I know this? Well, I know this because my students have made the same mistake. They tried several methods that were inconvenient, like watching the same movie twice, with subtitles first and then without subtitles. That was so boring, so they quit after the fourth movie. They also tried listening and then writing down what they heard, but that was too much work and they were too busy. So let's take this back to you. How do you make sure that you don't fail like they did? Well, if you want to succeed, the method you use must be convenient. It must be easy to do. If it's not, you'll probably quit before you see an improvement. So, let me share with you the most convenient way to improve your listening. It is very simple. There are only 2 steps that you need to take. Here's the first step. Download a lot of listening materials to your phone or MP3 player. Now, the best listening materials are the ones where people are just talking naturally. They're just having real conversations. When you use this kind of materials, you're listening to a lot of common, everyday words that people use in real life. Now don't worry, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you a resource that you can go to download this kind of materials for absolutely free. So, that's the first step. The next step is very important. Do not miss this step. The next step is to listen to the materials. But here's the key. Do not do it in your free time. Instead, do it when you're already doing something else. Something that doesn't require much of your attention. Listen to the materials while commuting, waiting in line, while exercising, and so on. Use those times to practice listening so that you don't have to spend extra time. Now, why do we have to do this? Well, the reason is that we want to make it convenient. When it's easy to do, you're likely to do it for a long time. If you study long enough, your listening skills will definitely improve. Now let me show you something that might shock you. Let's compare this technique with watching movies, which is how many people improve their listening. If you start using this technique today, and if you do it for 30 minutes per day, 1 year from now, you will have listened to 10,950 minutes of real English conversations. That is a lot of listening. And because you're not doing it in your free time, the amount of extra time spent is 0. That's awesome. What about watching movies? First of all, in the movie, there isn't a conversation or a dialogue in every part, right? If you watch an action movie, you might see a fight scene, an explosion, a car chase scene, and so on. So, let's say on average, the length of a movie is 100 minutes. 50% of those are conversations. The rest is something else. If you watch 4 movies a week, or 208 a year, in 1 year, you will have listened to 10,400 minutes of fake English conversations. Now, here's the worst part. Because each movie is 100 minutes long, this method requires you to spend as much as 20,800 minutes of your free time. This is really, really sad. Now, let's compare the 2 methods side by side. Now, I have a question for you. If you use this technique instead of watching movies, and you save over 20,000 minutes per year, how would you spend these 20,000 minutes? Reading English books to increase your vocabulary? practice speaking, or something else? Leave me a comment and let me know. So now you know the power of this technique. Let me repeat something important. This is a long-term process. It takes time, so please be patient. Fortunately, now you know this technique, so I know that you'll succeed. Okay, now it's time for me to share some listening materials with you. But first, I really want to ask you a favor. It took us several days to create this video and find some materials for you. If you find this video at all useful, please take a few seconds and share it with one English learning community. You will not only help them, but you will also help us. And then just click right here to get some free listening materials. In the next video, I'll share with you the method we use to help our students improve their English listening skills. So, I'll see you again in the next video. If you really want to change your English speaking and listening skills, make a decision and join Langmaster Learning System. We will help you speak English easily, fluently, and automatically. I'm Connor from Langmaster Learning System. Goodbye. See you next time. Hey everyone, I'm Connor, an English teacher of Langmaster Learning System. In this video, I will share with you the way to understand English movies without subtitles. Let's talk about a problem you might have when listening to English, especially when watching a movie. You don't understand what you hear. And this is not because you don't know the vocabulary. If you read the transcript or the subtitles, you will understand the material just fine. So you already know the words being used, you just don't recognize them when listening. So, what should you do? According to many research studies, an effective way to deal with this problem is to practice listening through easy to hard training. In one study, participants were trained to perform a task related to hearing, and there were 3 levels of difficulty: easy, normal, and difficult. The participants were divided into 2 groups. The first group was trained to perform only the difficult version of that task. The second group, however, started with the easy and normal versions first before performing the difficult version. The researchers wanted to know which group would perform the difficult version better. So what was the result? Well, despite having less training with the difficult version, the second group actually performed better. Practically speaking, this finding suggests that if you have difficulty doing something, instead of just keep doing the same thing, it's more effective to start with something easy and then slowly increase the difficulty as you improve. So, how can you apply this knowledge to improve your listening? I will tell you. Firstly, you have to make it easy in the beginning. For example, if you listen to podcasts in English on your smartphone, find an app that lets you change playback speed so that you can slow down or speed up what you're actually listening to. If you listen on your computer, there are programs that can do that as well. Then, whenever you have trouble understanding, use the app to slow down the audio like this.
told my mom that I was going to win first place, and she just laughed at me. To be honest, she had no real reason to believe me, because I wasn't a particularly great speller, and I hadn't even placed in the previous year's contest. But for some reason, I was so sure of myself. So I said, okay, Mom.
So now it gets easier, right? You have more time to think. You have more time to make out words that aren't pronounced clearly. You have more time to guess the meanings of new words and phrases. The idea here is to make it easy in the beginning. Listen at slower speeds. Listen to speakers that are easy to understand. Listen to easy stuff like podcasts and interviews as opposed to movies. Start small. But you're not done yet. Easy to hard training requires you do go from easy to difficult. So once your listening skills improve, you have to gradually increase the difficulty. So, for example, if you're listening to a speaker that speaks slowly and you can understand everything, instead of listening at the normal speed, speed it up like this.
For English learners, it's frustrating and embarrassing. You can't understand spoken English.
Now, after you speed it up, you must still be able to understand the context, but you should feel a little uncomfortable. This will help you become more familiar with listening to fast speakers. The idea here is to keep pushing yourself. If you keep listening to something easy, your listening skills will stop improving. So you have to keep challenging yourself. So listen at faster speeds. Also, don't keep listening to the same person. Listen to different people with different speaking styles. And then start watching movies without subtitles. If it's still difficult, you can slow down the movie by 5% or 10%, or you can slow it down even more if you don't mind the slowness. Once you get used to it, you can then start watching movies at normal speed. Alright, good luck. In the next video, I'll share with you the method we use to help our students improve their English listening skills. So, I'll see you again in the next video. If you really want to change your English speaking and listening skills, make a decision and join Langmaster Learning System. We will help you speak English easily, fluently, and automatically. I'm Connor from Langmaster Learning System. Goodbye. See you next time. Hello everyone, I'm Connor, an English teacher of Langmaster Learning System, and this is the first video of the series English Learning Methods. Today, I will share with you the secret to improve your English skills. This is a simple exercise that you can do to practice speaking English. This exercise will help you to speak English clearly so that people can understand what you say. It's very effective. Before you begin doing this exercise, let me ask you a question. Do you speak English like this?
I'm here to make Vietnam stronger. I'm a global citizen. I communicate with the whole world. I'm passionate about learning English.
As you can hear, the girl did not speak clearly. She was mumbling all the time. If you have the same problem, this exercise can help improve the clarity of your speech. Here's how it works. Firstly, you need to find English listening material like an audiobook or a podcast. And by the way, you can find a link to download this kind of material for free at the end of this video. Once you have that, just listen to it and try to repeat what you hear to the best of your ability. This will help improve your speech in several ways. It helps strengthen the muscles involved in speaking, it helps improve your pronunciation, and so on. This exercise seems easy to do, but doing it effectively is not easy. The results you get depend on your accuracy. If you can repeat what you hear accurately, you will get great results. But if you're not very accurate, you'll probably get poor results. So let's talk about the single most important thing you can do to get the best results possible from this exercise. The single most important thing you can do is to slow down the audio before doing the exercise. Most media players allow you to change playback speed. You can use that function to decrease the playback speed like this.
Say the two sisters.
If it's a video, slow it down as well. Why do we have to do this? Well, there are two reasons. Firstly, it ensures that you will speak slowly. Speaking fast is not good. The faster you speak, the more mistakes you will make. Every time you make a mistake, you are more likely to repeat that mistake in the future, and we do not want that to happen. Secondly, in order to repeat what you hear accurately, you need to hear it clearly. But if it's too fast like this...
And you know what? The dream workers disappeared and someone else came out of the principal's office, smiled at me and said, well, all right then, let's talk.
If it's too fast like that, you are going to miss some details. You're not going to hear some sounds, such as the ed endings of verbs in the past tense. If you don't hear the input clearly, the output you will produce will not be accurate. Now, let's see this technique in action.
He has got 3 daughters.
He has got 3 daughters.
And 3 sons.
And 3 sons.
One daughter is called Beauty.
One daughter is called Beauty. Okay, it's simple, right? All you have to do is listen closely. Repeat what you hear. When you repeat, pay attention to your pronunciation. If it sounds good, move on. If you hear a mistake, or if you're not sure, go back and listen to that part, then try again until you get it right. Also, if the current sentence is long, you should pause mid-sentence and just repeat that part. Don't wait until the speaker finishes the whole sentence, or you might forget the beginning of that sentence. The key is to practice slowly. Do not rush. Your goal is accuracy, not speed. It's not how fast you can do it, it's how slowly you can do it correctly. Alright, that's all you need to know to get great results from this simple exercise. If you want to get started, click here to go to our website where you can download some materials to practice with for free. If you really want to change your English, speaking and listening skills, make a decision and join Langmaster Learning System. We will help you speak English easily, fluently and automatically. I'm Connor from Langmaster Learning System. Goodbye. See you next time. Hello everyone, I'm Connor, an English teacher of Langmaster Learning System. Today, I will share with you the secret number 2 to help you improve your English skill. How to improve English speaking skills by yourself. I think you already know that if you want to improve your English speaking skills, you have to practice, right? You have to speak. Studying grammar will never improve your speaking. Listening to English alone will never improve your speaking. You have to actually speak. But what if you don't have someone to talk to in English? How can you practice then? Well, there's a technique that allows you to learn to speak English by yourself. No speaking partner is required. This technique can help improve many aspects of your spoken English. Your sentence structure, your grammar, your vocabulary, and most importantly, your ability to express your thoughts and ideas effectively. So, what is this technique? Well, here it is. Learning to speak English through imitation. When I say imitation, I'm not talking about repeating after native speakers and using the exact same words to improve your pronunciation. I'm talking about something a little more advanced than that. Here's how it works. You listen to a conversation, a story, or some kind of speech, and then try to deliver that speech in your own words. Let's see this technique in action.
When I was a child,
When he was a child,
my parents liked to pretend, like many other parents, that Santa Claus would bring us presents at Christmas.
his parents liked to pretend that Santa Claus would bring them presents at Christmas.
So when my siblings and I would wake up on Christmas morning,
So when he and his siblings would wake up on Christmas morning,
there would be a bunch of presents from supposedly Santa Claus sitting in front of the fireplace.
there'd be a bunch of presents from supposedly Santa Claus. So that's how it works. But that's just one way to do it. There are other ways too. For example, instead of imitating small portions of speech, like phrases and short sentences, you can imitate larger portions of speech. So, in this case, you wait until the speaker completes a thought or an idea, then pause, and try to express the idea yourself. Another approach is to simply listen to the whole speech and then try to deliver that entire speech yourself. So, there are several ways to go about it, but what I recommend is to combine them all together. And I call this approach easy to hard imitation. Easy to hard imitation is based on the concept of progressive training. The idea is that you start with something easy and then increase the difficulty of the activity, forcing yourself to get better. A number of studies have found that this kind of training can be very effective. Here's how you can apply this concept. Start by imitating small portions of speech. First, like phrases and short sentences. Then, move on to imitating larger portions of speech, like long sentences or even groups of sentences. And finally, try to deliver the entire speech on your own. This technique offers many benefits. You get to listen and imitate correct English, which helps you learn to form sentences properly. You get to learn idioms, expressions, and other speaking patterns that are used in day-to-day conversations. You get to learn grammar. When you imitate other people, you're learning grammar through a process called implicit learning. This is the process where the learning happens without your awareness. This is how babies and children learn the grammar rules of their first language. When you imitate, you don't think about the grammar. You're not trying to understand why the present perfect tense is used in this situation, or in that situation. Instead, you're focused on communication, on understanding and expressing ideas. You're still learning grammar, but you're not aware that it's happening. This is one of the best ways to learn grammar. Okay, that concludes this video. Hope you guys can speak English perfectly. If you really want to change your English speaking and listening skills, make a decision and join Langmaster learning system. We will help you speak English easily, fluently and automatically. I'm Connor from Langmaster Learning System. Goodbye. See you next time. Hello everyone, I'm Connor, an English teacher of Langmaster Learning System. Welcome back to English Learning Methods. Today, we will continue to learn another secret to speak English easily and fluently. It's the right way to learn to speak English. In this video, we'll discuss 3 methods for learning to speak English that really work. But before we do, we first need to talk about how humans learn. This is important because if you have some basic understanding of how we learn, you'll be able to distinguish good learning methods from bad ones. So, let's begin. The first thing you need to know is that there are 2 types of learning. The first type of learning is called explicit learning or conscious learning. This is the type of learning where the learner knows that he's learning something, and also what is being learnt. One example of explicit learning is studying grammar. When you listen to an English teacher explaining the past tense, you're learning English explicitly by consciously memorizing how to use the past tense. The second type of learning is called implicit learning or unconscious learning. In implicit learning, the learner doesn't know what is being learnt. Mostly, he's not even aware that he's learning something. The learning happens unconsciously. One example of implicit learning is listening to a conversation in English. When you listen to a conversation, your main goal is not to learn English, but to understand the conversation. But by doing this activity, you're simultaneously learning English. You may not realize it, but you're learning many aspects of the English language. The sentence, structure, the grammar, the vocabulary, and so on. So we can learn English in 2 different ways, either explicitly or implicitly. The question is, which way of learning is better? To answer this question, consider this. Just like there are 2 types of learning, there are also 2 types of knowledge: explicit knowledge and implicit knowledge. Explicit learning results in explicit knowledge, whereas implicit learning results in implicit knowledge. And there's a very big difference between these 2 knowledges. Accessing explicit knowledge requires conscious thought. You have to think about the knowledge in order to use it. This means that if you want to speak English properly, you have to think about English. You have to think about whether to use the past tense or something else. You have to think about how to form a sentence properly. But that's impossible. When you speak, there's no time to think about any of that. In contrast, accessing implicit knowledge does not require conscious thought. You don't have to think about the knowledge in order to use it. Think about how you speak your first language. It's pretty effortless, isn't it? You can speak properly without having to think about any grammar rule. That is possible only because your knowledge of your native language is implicit. For this reason, implicit learning is much better learning strategy. When you don't have to think about English, it frees up your mind so you can fully concentrate on expressing your thoughts and ideas. Unfortunately, many English students like to learn English in an explicit manner. Some of them spend time on YouTube watching videos about English grammar. What they don't realize is that the knowledge they gain from the activity is explicit knowledge, which is almost useless when it comes to speaking. So, let me share with you 3 methods for learning to speak English that really work. I'll give you an overview of them as well as their advantages and disadvantages. The first method is listening. Just listen to English as much as possible. An advantage of this method is that it's very easy to do. You can do it while you're stuck in traffic, whilst exercising, whilst waiting in line, and so on. But the main drawback of this method is that it's too passive. Listening alone is just not enough. You have to combine listening with some sort of speaking practice. And that brings us to the next method, which is to use English speaking courses that teach English implicitly. Let's see how these courses work. Is there a cat? No, there is not a cat. No, there isn't a cat. What is there? There is a dog. A dog. There's a dog. Does Lisa own the dog? No, Lisa doesn't own the dog. No, she doesn't. Lisa doesn't own the dog. Who owns the dog then? Okay, so that's one example. Here's another one. There was a guy named John. He wanted to own a restaurant. Did John want to own a car? No. He didn't want to own a car. He didn't want to own a car. What did he want? He wanted to own a restaurant. Wow. He wanted to own a restaurant. He wanted to own a restaurant. Who wanted a restaurant? Okay, so that's how it works. A key advantage of using a course like this is that you get feedback every time you speak. This allows you to learn and improve quickly. This is great for beginners. By using a course like this, the learner can expect to see significant improvements in a matter of months. But this method has some disadvantages too. One of which is limited learning. When you use a course like this, you get to learn only the words, phrases, and other things that are used in that course. And this is a problem because in order to speak English well, you need to keep expanding your vocabulary. Another problem is that at some point, it's going to become easy for you to practice with these courses and you will stop improving. When that happens, you're going to need to use a different method in order to keep getting better. And that brings us to the last method, which is called imitation. This is the practice where you listen to a conversation or a story in English and then try to tell that story in your own words. And by doing so, you get to learn grammar, vocabulary, and other aspects of English. This is a great method for intermediate and advanced speakers. A key advantage of this method is that there are virtually no limits to how much you can learn. The more you practice, the more you learn, and the larger your vocabulary. But the main problem with this method is that it can be difficult for beginners. If right now you can speak English just a little bit, you may not be able to practice imitation effectively. If that's the case, you might want to start with 1 or 2 speaking courses before you start using this method. Okay, so that's an overview of 3 learning methods that work because they are all from implicit learning. If you really want to change your English speaking and listening skills, make a decision and join Langmaster learning system. We will help you speak English easily, fluently, and automatically. I'm Connor from Langmaster Learning System. Goodbye. See you next time.
Hello everyone, I'm Hayden, an English teacher of Langmaster Learning System. In this video, you're going to learn how to improve your English pronunciation. And at the end of this video, I'll give you a link to our webpage that contains free pronunciation exercises. First of all, why is it so hard for you to improve your English pronunciation? Well, one of the reasons is that you can't make some sounds in English because those sounds are not present in your native languages. So, when you speak English, you often replace those difficult sounds with some other sounds that you can make. That's why you mispronounce words all the time. So, the first step to improve your pronunciation is to learn to pronounce all of the main sounds in English correctly. So how do you do that? Well, one way to do that is to find some pronunciation exercises for each sound in English and just practice. After you've practiced making all the sounds, you will have the perfect pronunciation. Now, I really wish it were that simple, but it's not. There is a problem. And the problem is the sounds in English are very similar to each other. Now, why is that a problem? Well, unlike babies, adults don't have the ability to easily distinguish between all the different sounds in a foreign language. So, when you hear 2 different sounds in English, if those sounds are similar, your brain might perceive those sounds as the same. That's why learning to make each sound separately may not work. In the past, my students couldn't hear the difference between these sounds. So to them, the words cheap and sheep sounded the same. So if they did an exercise teaching how to pronounce these words, they would mispronounce all of them. And they would believe that they were pronouncing those words correctly, even though that wasn't true. And that's the biggest challenge when it comes to improving your pronunciation. If you can't hear the difference between 2 sounds, how can you learn to produce each sound correctly? So what should you do? Fortunately, there's a method for overcoming this problem. This method is based on a number of research studies. These studies suggest that if you have trouble differentiating between 2 sounds or 2 words, the best way to train your brain to recognize the difference is to listen to the words at the same time. I mean, not exactly at the same time, but you listen to one word immediately after the other. If you hear those words at the same time, you are more likely to notice the difference. And after you've noticed the difference, you can then practice pronouncing those words. There are many free pronunciation exercises that apply this idea. These exercises contrast one sound with another. And here is what such an exercise might look like. This exercise contrasts the A sound with the E sound. This kind of exercise has three key benefits. Firstly, it makes you aware that the words in each pair are pronounced differently. Secondly, in an exercise like this, the presenter tends to exaggerate when pronouncing words, making it even easier to hear the differences. And lastly, since similar words are presented together for comparison, it reduces the tendency for non-native speakers to pronounce two different words the same way. Now, you might be wondering, does this really work? And the answer is yes. My students use this method to improve their pronunciation. Before they began applying this method, they mispronounced a lot of words. And here are some examples. Look at these word pairs. The words in each pair are pronounced differently, but they used to pronounce them the same way. So sometimes they would say something confusing. But thanks to this method, they were able to fix most of the mistakes, and now their pronunciation is much better. Alright, now it's time for you to improve your pronunciation. I've created a resource page that includes exercises for all the confusing sounds in English. Just click here to go to that page. If you really want to change your English speaking and listening skills, make a decision and join our Langmaster learning system. We'll help you speak English easily, fluently, and automatically. I'm Hayden from Langmaster Learning System. Goodbye and see you next time. Hello everyone, I'm Hayden, an English teacher of Langmaster Learning System. In this video, we're going to talk about how you can improve your pronunciation quickly and permanently. At the end of this video, I'll give you a link to a web page that links to a lot of free pronunciation exercises. Now let's start by talking about a very frustrating problem. Suppose I currently mispronounce this word. Suppose I say program instead of program. I want to fix this mistake. So I learn the right pronunciation and I repeat it over and over. Program, program, program. Now here's the problem. Because I have mispronounced this word for so long, the incorrect pronunciation has become a habit. And because of that, I can only say the word correctly if I pay attention to my pronunciation. If I don't pay attention, I will revert back to the old habit. So how can I solve this problem? Well, the answer is I have to increase the number of repetitions. Imagine that right now inside my brain there are two memories associated with the word program. One of them is old, the other is new. The old memory represents the wrong pronunciation, the bad habit. The new one represents the right pronunciation that I've just learned. So these are memories of how to coordinate the muscles in my tongue, lips, and other parts to say the word program. The reason that I mispronounce this word, if I don't pay attention, is that the old memory is much stronger. If I want to break this old habit, I have to repeat the right pronunciation many times. Every time I do that, the new memory gets stronger and the old memory gets weaker. I repeat, the old memory doesn't stay the same. It actually gets weaker. This phenomenon is called retrieval-induced forgetting. It happens when there are two or more memories competing with each other. It's a phenomenon where retrieving one memory makes us forget other memories. This is why you have to be very careful when fixing a mistake. If you accidentally repeat the mistake, it'll strengthen the old habit and weaken the correction that you're trying to make, making the problem worse. So that's the first thing you have to keep in mind. You have to repeat, repeat, and repeat. This sounds good in theory, but in practice, there's a huge problem with repetition. So what is the problem with repetition? Well, it takes a tremendous amount of time. Fixing just one mistake requires a lot of repetition. Who has time for that? After all, you probably have a lot of mistakes to eliminate. So what can you do? Fortunately, there's a technique that you can use to speed up the process, and that is exaggeration. Going back to our previous example, suppose I pronounce this word as program. That's incorrect because the R sound is missing. If I want to fix this mistake quickly, I will exaggerate the R sound. Program. 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 Here's another example. Let's say I pronounce this word as banana. This is incorrect because I don't stress the second syllable. So to fix this, I will stress the second syllable really hard. Banana. Banana. This sounds silly, but you will not believe how much faster your pronunciation will improve when you exaggerate. But how does this technique help you improve your pronunciation faster? Well, one of the reasons that we mispronounce words is that we replace certain sounds with other sounds that are easier to say. So a non-native speaker might pronounce this word as taught instead of thought. We also tend to ignore certain sounds. So we might pronounce this word as hos instead of horse. This is because the brain is lazy. It has the tendency to pronounce words in the easiest way possible. But when you exaggerate, you're telling your lazy brain that the sounds being exaggerated are important. You're basically telling your brain, hey, these sounds are important. Do not ignore them. So when you speak normally, you will sound much clearer. But that's not all. When you exaggerate, you're strengthening the muscles involved in speaking, especially your tongue muscles. This is a huge benefit because if those muscles are strong, you will speak much clearer. So, to summarize, there are two things that you can do to quickly and permanently improve your pronunciation. Number one, you can use repetition to break bad speaking habits and replace them with good ones. Number two, you can speed up the process by exaggerating everything that should be exaggerated. Alright, that's all for today. To help you get started, I've created a resource page that links to a lot of free pronunciation exercises. So click here to go to that page. If you really want to change your English speaking and listening skills, make a decision and join our Langmaster learning system. We'll help you speak English easily, fluently, and automatically. I'm Hayden from Langmaster Learning System. Goodbye and see you next time. Hi everyone, I'm Hayden, an English teacher of Langmaster Learning System. In the next video, we will learn some secrets to improve your vocabulary. Firstly, we will talk about the best way to improve your English vocabulary. Now, what is this best way to improve your vocabulary? If you ask this question to English teachers or other English learners, they will tell you the same thing. They'll tell you that the best way to build your vocabulary is to learn vocabulary in context by listening and reading a lot. And I completely agree with this. That is the best way to increase your vocabulary. So this is common sense, right? Everybody knows that. This topic is so boring. But there's a problem. Common sense is not common action. Everybody knows how to improve their vocabulary, but most people don't do it because they spend too much time on things like social media and funny cat videos. Now, if regular listening and reading is a common practice for you, then congratulations, you don't need to watch this video. But if it's not a common practice for you yet, let me convince you to start listening and reading on a regular basis. I'm going to share with you 2 other benefits you'll get from applying this habit. I'm also going to share with you some listening and reading materials at the end of this video. So let's get started. The first benefit you'll get is intuition. What is intuition? Well, let's say that you come across a multiple choice question about English grammar. You look at the choices and you know immediately what the correct answer is. You don't know the grammar rule that explains it. There's no reasoning behind it. It just feels right. That's intuition. It comes from taking in a lot of input by listening and reading. Unfortunately, some people don't appreciate the power of intuition. They learn vocabulary in a very strange way. They don't learn words in context. Instead, they find a list of words and memorize the meaning of each word one by one. This seems like a good idea. They're learning a lot of new words in a short period of time. There's only one problem with this. It's stupid. Just because we know the meaning of a word doesn't mean that we can use it. It's not enough. We also need to know how the word is used. Now, I'm sure that you already know this, right? You're not one of those people. You already know that it's much better to learn vocabulary by listening and reading. Because when you do that, you're not only improving your vocabulary, but also grammar, sentence structure, and so on. Over time, you will become an independent learner. It means that you will have the ability to improve your English without help from other people. And that's really cool. Let's talk about the second benefit of this habit. The second benefit is an increase in brain power. Just like how a muscle needs physical exercise to become stronger, your brain needs mental exercise to grow as well. Regular listening and reading is a great mental exercise. It improves so many functions of the brain. When you listen to someone speaking, you have to stay focused. This improves your attention. And if they're speaking really fast, you're also training your brain to process information faster, which leads to better comprehension. Reading is great too. It improves your memory. When you read a novel, you need to remember lots of details, like the names of the characters, their backgrounds, the plot, and so on. Some books even increase your intelligence. Reading certain types of books improves the way you think. And these are just a few benefits. There are so many other benefits that I didn't even mention here. Now you might be thinking, why should I care about my brain power? Well, because it will play a huge role in your English language development, especially if you're trying to improve your spoken English. For non-native English speakers like you, speaking English requires a lot of effort. It places great demand on so many cognitive functions like memory, attention, auditory processing, reasoning, and so on. So, if you want to speak English well, you're going to need to have a strong, healthy brain with lots of power. And by the way, if you're not living in an English-speaking country, this habit is a must. And I'm speaking from my students' experience here, because they've never been to an English-speaking country, but they can speak English well. If you're in the same situation, the only way for you to immerse yourself in the English language is by applying this simple but powerful habit. I guarantee that you will love the results. So do yourself a favor by start exercising your brain today. Click here to get some listening materials. Or if you feel like reading, click here for my reading recommendations. You can also find these links in the description below. If you really want to change your English speaking and listening skills, make a decision and join our Langmaster learning system. We'll help you speak English easily, fluently, and automatically. I'm Hayden from Langmaster Learning System. Goodbye and see you next time. Hello everybody, I'm Hayden, an English teacher of Langmaster Learning System. In this video, I'm going to share with you a technique that you can use to remember English vocabulary. And the reason that I recommend this technique is that it's pretty effective. I actually did a small experiment. I created 2 lists of words that I didn't know, and I just tried to memorize the words in each list. I did not use any technique to memorize the first list. It was just pure repetition. But for the second list, I used the technique that you're about to learn. The next day, I tried to recall the meanings of the words in both lists. For the first list, I was able to recall only 12%. But for the second list, I recalled as much as 50%. This is pretty impressive considering the fact that I spent only 1 minute memorizing each word. So let me explain the technique. So let's say we want to remember the word adroit, which means clever or skillful at something, really good at something. The first thing we need to do is come up with another word that sounds similar to this word. And that word must refer to something that we can visualize, something that we can see in our mind. So for this word, the substitute word could be the word android, which means a robot, right? Adroit and android sound pretty close to each other. We could also use the phrase a drawing. That sounds similar as well. Adroit, a drawing. What these words have in common is that they refer to something that we can visualize. And this is a very important point, and you're going to find out why soon. So we have 2 options here, but let's use the word android as the substitute word. Now visualize an android. You know, a robot that looks like a human. Next, we have to associate this image to the meaning of the word that we want to remember. And again, the meaning is skillful at something. That's the meaning. So perhaps we can imagine the android doing something that requires a lot of skill. Maybe we can imagine the android playing the guitar on stage. Maybe there's a competition going on and we can imagine other guitarists coming up on stage and trying to compete with the android. But everybody loses because the android is very good at playing the guitar. The android is adroit at playing the guitar. So what we're trying to do here is associate the pronunciation with the meaning through an image or a story. We're creating an association between them. So when you come across this word again, the pronunciation will remind you of the association and therefore the meaning of the word. Let's take a look at one more example. Suppose we want to memorize the word lambaste, which means to criticize someone or something harshly. For the first syllable, lamb, we can use lamb, the animal, or lamp, the thing that generates light, as the substitute word. For the second syllable, based, we can use bass, the musical instrument. And I also happen to have a friend named Bass. So personally, I can use his name as the substitute word as well. But let's use lamb, the animal, and bass, the musical instrument, together. So we can imagine a lamb playing the bass. But unfortunately, the lamb is really terrible at playing the bass. So the bass gets angry and starts criticizing the lamb. The bass is lambasting the lamb. Okay, that's it. I hope you find this video useful. If you really want to change your English speaking and listening skills, make a decision and join our Langmaster learning system. We'll help you speak English easily, fluently, and automatically. I'm Hayden from Langmaster Learning System. Goodbye and see you next time.